Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is the RuneQuest Glorantha slipcase set by Chaosium, Part 1. Okay, first, a lot of history. RuneQuest has a long and sometimes troublesome past that spans over 40 years. First published by a startup company called the Chaosium in 1978, RuneQuest's first edition was the brainchild of industry icon Greg Stafford and was co-written by Steve Perrin, Ray Turney, Steve Henderson and Warren James. It was also the first role-playing game that Chaosium ever produced. This was followed by a second edition in 1979 that had some rule adjustments and a variant cover. The boxed version was released in 1980 under license in the UK by Games Workshop. This, in addition to the rules, contained the introductory scenario Apple Lane. In 1984, the third edition was released in conjunction with Avalon Hill in the US and Games Workshop in the UK. The US version was a box set and a slightly harder to get hold of softback book, and the UK version was 4 books: RuneQuest, Advanced RuneQuest and RuneQuest Monsters, as well as the Land of Ninja setting. The rules had again been tweaked, adding sorcery and ritual magic. In addition to this, it was detached from Glorantha so as to allow other settings such as Land of Ninja and Vikings in the US. Despite this being the most supported version of the game, it failed to capitalise on popularity partially due to poor production values and sporadic releases, and went into a long period of hibernation as Chaosium and Avalon Hill stopped producing the game altogether. RuneQuest stayed with Avalon Hill, the basic role-playing percentile system with Chaosium, and Glorantha returned to creator Greg Stafford. Greg Stafford left Chaosium and grabbed the trademark for the game when Avalon Hills expired. We then jumped to 2004, when Mongoose Publishing made the deal with Stafford to create a new edition of the game. In 2006, Mongoose's version of the game was released to mixed reviews. The game was set in Glorantha's second age and used a variant of Chaosium's basic roleplay system. In 2009, the game was rewritten and released as a new edition, affectionately known as MRQ2, and then Mongoose Publishing went on to lose the license. Shortly after this, the company, The Design Mechanism, announced a new 6th edition of the game that was released to acclaim in 2012, though, like RuneQuest 3, was not intrinsically tied to Glorantha. At this stage, Chaosium were in financial difficulty, partially due to overreaching on the Kickstarters of Horror in the Orient Express and Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. Greg Stafford and Sandy Peterson returned to take control of Chaosium at this point, and Moon Design, a company who had gained the rights to Glorantha from Stafford at some point, essentially merged with Chaosium and set about creating a new edition. Chaosium once again entered the Kickstarter arena, taking a different approach by creating a reprint of RuneQuest 2nd edition for most of the original books that were in print back in the day, and set about revisiting Glorantha. What I hold in my hands is essentially RuneQuest 7th edition, which Chaosium have decided to brand as RuneQuest Glorantha, and is also considered to be the 4th edition, meaning the 4th edition made by them. First released in 2018, this latest edition reunites the rule set with the world of Grantha and is built on the RuneQuest 2nd edition system, as this was considered the least broken of the rules, with the addition of sorcery, which has been reworked. Since this release, a bestiary and a Game Masters pack has joined the product line. It's also worth mentioning that RuneQuest Glorantha has, since release, gone on to win an Annie Award for the art contained within. The slipcase set is the second printing which corrects a few errors and gathers together the existing RuneQuest Glorantha material. It contains a 444-page hardback rulebook, a 206-page hardback bestiary, and the Game Master screen and pack, which contains the 128-page softback book of adventures, a pamphlet of Game Master references, a Gloranthan calendar, a bunch of character sheets, handouts and maps, and frankly as good of a GM shield as I've ever seen for any game. Okay, to the cover. Here we have a stunning piece by Andrei Fetisov that is titled Heroes of Orlanth and depicts the King of the Gods himself leading heroes into battle. This piece is both on the cover of the slipcase set and the rulebook. Right, so first up, let's visit the rulebook. The book is a really nice solid hardback with a silver silk bookmark. Opening the book, we're greeted with an incredibly detailed but frankly difficult to read map of the Dragon Pass region. After this we have the credits, which has a nice dedication to Greg Stafford, and the now expected invocation which says, "May Arachne Solara bless and protect this book." Once we get past the contents, we get to the introduction. Here, it gives a brief potted history of what RuneQuest is, explaining that it is not a pastiche of medieval Europe, but a Bronze Age setting based on mythic heroism. It talks about how alignments are not part of RuneQuest, but rather allegiances to tribe, cult and city are what people hold dear, with humanity only being dominant due to the elder races quarrelling. It discusses the main theme of Grantha being the relationship between man and God. The intrinsic values of the world, such as the elements, the moon and the like, are directly associated with the gods, with many minor gods having affiliations with things like cows, boats and volcanoes. It is a complete, self-contained universe. Things like Zeus and Odin are not worshipped here, though you will certainly find pirates, nomads and powerful empires. It mentions the purpose of RuneQuest being that the players are tied to the runes, the cosmic powers that define Glorantha and are manifested in the gods themselves. It gives the usual few paragraphs on how to play the game, you know, the kind of thing, talking about dice and how successes are resolved, and then moves on to the unique features of RuneQuest. It mentions how deadly combat is and how it shouldn't be undertaken lightly. It talks about how everybody has magic, whether that be granted by a god, the spirit world or even the study of sorcery. All of the nations have magical defences that they can call upon right down to a personal level. After this we have the runes, a key feature of RuneQuest. Described as cosmic archetypes, they are the source of a god's power and are deeply entrenched in the setting. The gods are an active force in the world and reality is defined by mythology. Adventurers are also driven by their rune affinities and passions that can help mould a character's behaviour. Those without deep affinities and passions are often weaker than those who have them. They are usually members of cults that provide a link between mortality and the divine, and membership grants the faithful with a sliver of the god's power, as well as support from fellow cult members. It also stresses the importance of clan and family to the setting. Time, for the adventurers, passes in seasons. The assumption is made that every time they adventure it takes a season, as their characters will often have obligations to all of the important factors mentioned so far. It stresses though that RuneQuest is meant to be epic in scope and scale, and the chance that the adventurers could be active participants in the foretold hero wars. It also touches upon hero questing, that act where heroic mortals directly interact with Glorantha mythology with the hope of bringing some of that epic magic to the mundane world. A hero quest is something that usually changes the participant forever. We then have a section entitled Gaming and Glorantha, where the whole Your Glorantha May Vary ideology is mentioned. It gives some pointers on how to maintain the Glorantha flavour. Firstly, the importance of the community needs to be stressed, even to the point of giving the adventurers whole families and a connection to their roots. Secondly, it says that the Bronze Age flavour is important, with the metal bronze itself being the primary metal used instead of iron or steel. Most societies are polytheistic, with often multitudes of gods being worshipped, and also the colour and feel of a Bronze Age setting helps differentiate it from other role-playing settings. The final pointer is the need to keep it fantastic. Magic is within the very fabric of the world, and it mentions the demonic Crimson Bat as used by the Lunar Empire, and Kerofin Mountain in Dragon Pass, which is almost 12 kilometres high, but looks more like a needle reaching into the sky than anything else. It also talks about the ducks, baboons, flying bulls and sentient fish, and that the world is not often rational. Also, we have a small box out that tells you the key features in this edition that distinguishes it from previous editions for those Glorantha who would like to know, which is a good touch. The next chapter is simply titled Glorantha. Here it tells us the basics of the world. The first thing it discusses is the very focus of the game, the runes. It goes into how intrinsic they are to the setting and that they suffuse everything about the world, and that over time some of them have actually changed. It's speculated that the gods are a personification of the runic forces, though the relationship is often unclear. They are symbols filled with latent power. They can be painted, drawn and tattooed without issue, however, those with the right training can channel this power within. After this it goes into the 4 types of runes: elements, forms, conditions and powers. The elements are generally 5 in number: darkness, earth, air, fire and water, though moon is often considered the 6th element. This is what makes up the world. The powers are formed in mutually oppositional pairs such as harmony and disorder, or truth and illusion. This is followed by a set of 4 tables illustrating the runes in the game, as well as what they represent. The forms are descriptive runes such as man or beast, how the force is expressed. And finally we have the conditions, which express what aspect of the element, form or power is favoured by a cult. Following this, it goes into the world of Glorantha. Now, Glorantha is something that I have explained many times in my other RuneQuest videos, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but instead give a brief overview. Glorantha the world is a bulging lozenge shape that floats upon Stamax River, the primeval ocean. The air gods live in the sky and the earth and water gods in the underworld. The middle world is where mortals dwell. It has northern and southern continents, and beyond the middle world are the lands of powerful supernatural races, such as the Luathela. The northmost continent is Genatella, and it is colder than the southern one. The far north is inhabited by ice demons and snow trolls. In the centre of the world is Megasta's Pool, a gigantic whirlpool that draws all of the waters of the world. The most famous area in Grantha is Dragon Pass. It is populated by numerous groups, and in the present year is being invaded by the Lunar Empire. It is an extremely magical area and the centre of the world for many myths. Many great events have taken place here, and it is rumoured to be where the foretold hero wars will begin. The region is forests, hills and mountains, and has a warlike population. It touches upon Gloranthan civilization, comparing it more to Mesopotamia and Homer's Greece than Lemordartha. It also mentions the elder races, that being the Eldraami, Brew, Dragonnewt, Mostali and us, as well as the lesser ones such as the Morricanth and the Scorpion Men. It talks about Gloranthan technology, and that bronze itself is the very bones of dead gods. Also mentioning that unalloyed metals such as iron, lead, tin and copper prevent the use of magic, and that all coins are alloyed. On that note, it talks about Gloranthan money, that being wheels, lunas, clacks and bolgs, and then we reach the history of Grantha. It covers the god time and the golden age and the birth of Umath. It briefly goes into the God's War and Orlanth killing Yelm with the sword Death, the Great Darkness, and then the emergence of the unholy trio of Ragnaglar, Thed and Malia. It talks about the quest of the Lightbringers into Hell to find Yelm and the Great Compromise where time was created and history began. It mentions the Dawn Ages and the Empire of the Wormfriends, as well as the birth of the god Gabaji. We also have a new saga to follow as per the previous editions. Here we are treated to the 11th part of Vasana's saga, a Windlord companion of Prince Argrath and her journey across Dragon Pass. These are scattered about the book, adding context and story to many of the sections. It also gives us a map of where she journeyed to in each part of her saga here. Going back to the history of Glorantha, it talks about the Dragonkill War and the birth of the Red Goddess, a minor deity that was killed in the Great Darkness who was resurrected and lived on Glorantha for a short time before her apotheosis and the birth of the Lunar Empire. It briefly mentions the Glowline and the conquest of the Lunas and the rebellion of Starbrow. It talks about the Temple of the Reaching Moon in Sartar being destroyed by a true dragon, those the size of mountain ranges, known as the Dragon Rise, and the end of the current year of 1625 and the first rumblings of the Hero Wars. That concludes part 1 of this series of videos. The next video will be on the chapter called Adventurers.